And welcome to The Verdict. Kent Meyers with Mick Cornett again this Sunday morning, bringing you an outstanding guest. President Martha Berger of Oklahoma City University is going to join us here in the next segment. Mick, how you been?
I've been good, Kent. You're looking well.
Well, I am always pleased to get with you. I wish we could be back in the studio together, but I hope that'll be the case sometime soon. We've got a good show today with President Martha Berger from OCU. She has just done a fantastic job as a president of OCU, and I know that as being, I work for her. She's my boss. I teach at OCU Law School, and I know what the atmosphere is there. It is really pro-education and upbeat and problem solving. I'm just very favorably impressed to be associated with the organization that has that kind of attitude. And of course, you know, Mick, that springs from the top.
Well, and she's played a critical role over the last 20 years in Oklahoma City's ascension, and the university, I think, reflects Oklahoma City's ascension. In other words, when something good happens at OCU, it reflects positively on Oklahoma City. And when something goes well in Oklahoma City, it reflects positively on OCU. And so I think that the two entities go hand in hand. And I think Martha has embraced that and been part of the business community. And now, as president of the university, has helped both entities move forward. Yeah.
Leadership is the quality that comes to mind when you say Martha Berger, because she sure exemplifies that. We're going to have to get to a break now, and you can hear from our sponsors for a couple of minutes. And when we come back, Mick and I will introduce you to and talk with President Martha Berger.
I've always been a public servant. I've served either tribes, I've served the federal government, or I've served state governments. The law allows me to express my natural desire to advocate. My name is Stephanie Cochran. I am an attorney, and I am Chickasaw. Lawyers give their clients, and in my case, tribal governments, a voice. And it's through legal decisions that tribes have been able to accomplish and to regain some much lost footing that they encountered in the late 1800s and the 1900s. When I reflect back on this time in history, I think I'll look at it in terms of opportunity. And I think now we have to turn those opportunities into long-term success for our future generations.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
One of the best kept secrets about the post 9/11 GI Bill benefit is that it can be used at a trade school or a technical school, and it doesn't have to be used at a university or college. These are benefits that the veterans have earned through their service, and they should take advantage of it.
Veterans really need to understand that there are many resources offered by the Oklahoma Department of Veteran Affairs. They are there to help you find the right school for you, the school that will help you and your family make great steps into your future.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett with our guest, President Martha Berger from Oklahoma City University. She is the 18th president of Oklahoma City University. Before OCU, she spent a good period of time, 18 years, with Chesapeake Energy in the growth years for that company. And I suspect she acquired a lot of her leadership skills coming from that organization. She did her undergraduate work, got her degree at University of Central Oklahoma, got her MBA from OCU. She has won many awards in the community. She's been very active over the years and has been an outstanding leader in everything that she has touched. And she also was awarded an honorary doctorate from OCU in Humane Letters in 2012. Martha, sure good to have you.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
President Berger, I think in these kind of uncertain times, I wanted to talk to you about constituencies that you have to deal with. First of all, a college president, already has students and faculty and parents and a long list. Now you're adding government officials and health officials, and who knew that the CDC would have, such a strong role in anyone who's running an institution these days. So you're having to expand your Rolodex, I would think, and deal with things on a whole new level from your first couple of years in office.
Oh my gosh, you could multiply that by 100. The other day we were having a conversation and I thought, I think, I missed somewhere getting my engineering degree, right? Because we're talking about MERV filters and UV lights that kill on the fly and these kinds of things, and the way that we're talking about and thinking about safety measures as we deal with the pandemic. And so, yeah, there's even a little bit of engineering, I think, that we have to rely on skills of others, of course, but then we also have to get up to speed ourselves.
And I mentioned one of those constituency groups as parents. How involved are you hearing from parents more this year because of the health concerns, and they're concerned about the health of their students, of their children?
Well, I would say before the semester began, we heard a lot more from parents. That said, we planned a lot more interactions, webinars to provide information. And if you think about it, right, the situation was changing daily across the country, across the world. So not always did we have perfect information or all the answers. But what we found was just, continually getting in front of parents, having opportunities for them to engage was really helpful. I will say, as we've had, success is probably the wrong word, but as we've really met the challenge of this pandemic and been navigating it, what I would call successfully during the semester, those interactions have tailed off. So now I think parents have gotten to the place where they're comfortable with the safety protocols that are going on, as really, I guess, we have a little bit more in the world as a whole. So before semester and at the beginning of the semester, absolutely. We heard from parents about how we're going to move our students in, I mean, everything, how classes were going to be conducted. What if my student needs to quarantine? All those questions. But now it's really tapered off to a more kind of normal environment as their kids are doing well.
Martha, in the intro, I pointed out that you were at Chesapeake for about 18 years, and I know you were vice president of human relations and had a title or two like that. What did that experience with Chesapeake, how did that equip you to become president of a university?
Well, the experiences I had there sure helped. I'm not sure anything equips you perfectly to be president of a university. But when I think about it, and one of the things we said frequently at Chesapeake, every day, was that leadership matters. And so the idea that leadership is service was really instilled upon us as part of the culture at Chesapeake. And I worked there for 18 years, and I worked side by side with my boss, Aubrey McClendon, who I think really helped our community see, certainly he helped those of us in leadership positions at Chesapeake see just how important it is for the constituents in a community to work together to lift the community. And so when I took this job at OCU, I could almost hear Aubrey whispering in my ear to take it and take it, take this job, because the idea of servant leadership, which is a part of OCU, is really also a part of what he and Chesapeake practiced every day.
Mick, can you comment on the relationship between, when you were mayor, between Chesapeake and Oklahoma City? Chesapeake, rather.
Well,
can you comment on what that relationship was?
I think it revolved largely around Aubrey, but certainly I think Tom Ward was playing a critical role. And, you know, if you're talking about the early 2000s at the same time, I would characterize the relationship between Mayor of Oklahoma City and CEO Aubrey McClendon. It was high maintenance because Aubrey had high standards. In other words, you know, I've always believed you're not going to have businesses with high standards in a city with low standards. And I think, let's face it, you look at the decades after World War II, Oklahoma City developed into a community of low standards. And along comes Chesapeake and Oklahoma City kind of rising at the same time. And Aubrey was kind of pushing the city to do better. At the same time, you know, you could tell he was living up to the expectations at his own company. And you also appreciate CEOs who take care of their employees, and certainly the benefits packages and the salaries were some of the best in the business. And so the city benefited, you know, greatly from that era. But I always thought it would have been fun, you know, to be in Martha's shoes sometimes in those days, to hear some of the conversations that took place, you know, below the radar screen about growing a company like that was that dynamic. And Martha, I know that you were close to Aubrey and miss him as much as the rest of us do.
Oh, I absolutely do. There's not a day that goes by that in some way, shape, or form I don't think of him, particularly if I'm walking across campus and I see a piece of you know, paper that's fallen out and just laying there on the ground, and I stoop to pick it up, because he would always pick up little pieces of trash if he saw them around our campus. So I think of him fondly every time I do that. And it's kind of one of the ways that I honor him.
Martha, I want to
yeah, go ahead, Nick, please.
Role at OCU. OCU has had a lot of international students through the years. And I know with you know, the days that we're in now, you know, some of that has to have been restricted. How has OCU been impacted by immigration?
Not as badly as others. And I guess the reason for that is because it's been probably 11 or 12 years when there were tremendous crackdowns on visas, and institutions of higher ed were impacted all over the country, and we were one of them. I can remember at the time we had many students from the Middle East that suddenly had their visas cut and couldn't come to study at OCU. Now,
Martha, excuse me, pardon me for interrupting you. I
Sure.
hate to do it. We are out of time in this segment, but what we'll do is come back to this, if you don't mind, talking about those students when we come back from the break. You're watching The Verdict with Mick Cornett and our guest today, President Martha Burke. We'll be right back.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank #2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett visiting with our special guest today, President Martha Berger from OCU. Mick, where would you like to go here?
President Berger, I was pleased to hear you say that you didn't think your student body had been impacted as greatly as other institutions when it comes to the travel restrictions and visas and bringing in the international students that OCU is famous for.
Yes, we experienced a decline in international students back about 10 years or so ago. We've slowly, we haven't recovered to those levels, but we've slowly crept back up. So I guess what that means is our international student population is pretty small. So even a little bit of an impact doesn't impact us tremendously, even if it's a small decline. Many of our international students are athletes. We were having difficulty knowing right up until the last minute whether they'd be able to get back in the country. As it turns out, almost all of our students that were international students were able to return, but fewer freshmen international students. That's really how we saw the impact there, was fewer freshmen, but we worked really hard to get our upperclassmen back.
Martha, let me ask you, OCU has been a leader in what I will call music or the arts education for years and years. If you're not number one, you're close to it all the time. What effect on the arts, where students have to get together and perform and rehearse and the like, what has COVID done to that?
Well, I think we could have 5 full shows just on how we are dealing with teaching the arts and our performing arts students during a time of COVID. I will say first and foremost, I was speaking with the dean of the music school just this morning, and he was saying how grateful. He said, this is a class filled with gratitude, because as we've seen Broadway shut down and so many arts organizations go dark, here we are doing it. We invited our students back to campus. It's different. But they are so thankful that we are doing it. I believe we have 30 performances in the next couple of weeks coming up. Yes, a lot of it is streamed, but lo and behold, we're teaching students, giving them new skills as to how to do streaming content, right? Our orchestras are in small groups, and then we produce it and put them all together. So it is, it's been very, very creative, to say the least. And I guess we're better to demonstrate creativity than with the performing arts. And I do want to give a shout out particularly to Kristen Chenoweth. She had agreed to be an artist in residence for us. Well, then the pandemic hit, and as you know, New York, which is her home, shut down. Well, she went forward doing her classes via Zoom. They are unbelievable, and there's so much engagement from our students. We've had other areas in the performing arts where we might have a guest artist that is willing to participate in a class over Zoom that probably might not have been willing to travel to Oklahoma City and take a couple days. So in some ways, we're providing opportunities even more expansive than we were before. So really some great reports, some great shows still going on at OCU, just not in person.
What about your sports program? Excuse me, Mick.
Well, that you took the words right out of my mouth. What about fall sports, Martha?
Well, sports are a little different. We have our full rosters of teams here, but largely because we've we've lost some ground from the surrounding community in our numbers. We right now are not participating in competitions, but we're still doing all of the small group conditioning that goes on campus. We are hoping to gear up in the spring and be able to compete then. I will say the NAIA, of which we're a member, has been really, forward thinking. They've moved all of the national level competitions for every sport to the spring. And so there is enough time that all of our teams, if we're able to compete in the spring, we can still do that, get a full schedule in and compete for a national championship. So that is our hope. But we're really having to respond to how well the Oklahoma City community is doing, particularly when it comes to playing nearby teams and traveling.
And what about
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mick.
Martha, what about fundraising? How is that ahead of pace or behind where you typically are?
It is, it's behind where we typically are. And I think it just has to do with having to regroup, right? And carry on relationships with donors in different ways. That said, we have some really cool and big plans for some fundraising activities that are going to happen a little bit later in the year. But I will give you an example of one of the changes and how we're accommodating. And then I think this one's going to stay with us past the pandemic. But we're starting to pair donors and scholarship recipients, for instance, on Zoom. So whereas maybe a donor didn't have an opportunity to meet their scholarship recipient one-on-one in every case, now we're trying to make sure that we can do that. And so some of our donors maybe who wouldn't have been physically able to travel to OCU or might not be interested in engaging in a phone conversation, they sure will meet by Zoom. And then they can look at their scholarship recipient, see the excitement, and hear their stories and how the scholarship has impacted them. So I think it's a couple steps backward, and now we're gaining momentum as we have sort of accommodated to what I hate to use those words almost, but the new normal that we find ourselves in.
Let me ask you about the faculty recruitment, faculty retention. Have you noticed any change there?
Well, I will tell you, we just completed a search for an open position in our law school, and we had an absolutely fabulous pool of candidates. So I will say the recruitment is and retention is alive and well. I think what's going to be harder to deal with is the uncertainty around enrollment and the effect that that's going to have on some of the small private universities across the country.
Have you had any particular spike in COVID cases among your students that is concerning to you?
No, we have not. We have kept at really, really low levels. We have had some, but never having had to manage more than 10, either direct on campus or off campus in total. So we feel very, very fortunate that all the work that we've done seems to be paying off in the number of cases that we've had and how minimal that is.
Well, Martha, congratulations. That has to be our last word because we're out of time. But we really do appreciate you coming on, and we congratulate you on your service at OCU as president and the way you're guiding the university wisely through a very difficult time. You're watching The Verdict with Mick Cornett and our guest, Martha Berger. We'll be right back.
It used to be okay in hospitals. It used to be okay in movie theaters. It was okay in classrooms, restaurants, and airplanes. But thanks to a greater understanding of the dangers, that's not okay anymore. So now that we know secondhand smoke causes lifelong health problems, why is it still okay to smoke with children in the car? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's get serious about protecting kids. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
You have children come from a different lifestyle, different mindset. You have to open your arms and really do what you have to do to have that child become a part of your family. And if it's more patience, that's what you do. Kids got to know they can trust you. And that's what we try to do with these kids.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to The Verdict with Kent Meyers and Mick Cornett, and our guest was President Martha Berger of OCU, who's just doing a fantastic job.
Absolutely. You know, those presidents over there continue to elevate the stature of the university as well as the academics going on. Let me give some website information. You can get more information about OCU and President Berger. The website is www.okcu.edu. And of course, we have a website, theverdict.tv. Tell us about a guest you'd like to see right here. Kent, another good show.
Thanks. Good to be with you, Mick.